Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Cattari mani bhikkave upadani katamani cattari. Kamupadanam dittupadanam silabbatupadanam attavadupadanam iti. Dear friends in Dhamma, actually we thought of taking a subject of clinging, subject of grasping, holding on to, adhering to. So this is something constantly happening in our mind, and we are being subjected to that, and as a result of that we are end up with a lot of suffering. So if you can remember in Paticca, so there's a kind of a sequence Buddha constantly explain how clinging, grasping leads to kind of becoming, Upadana paccaya bhava, and then that becoming going towards arising of various kinds of suffering, end up with suffering. So recognizing these kinds of upadana, clinging, grasping is therefore quite important, and therefore there is a significant importance is given in the Dhamma to explain what are the different categories of clinging available in our mind. And therefore time to time Buddha explains some information related to these different kinds of graspings, and before explaining the different types, actually we need to understand another definition. There Buddha mentioned there are upadaniya dhamma, that means things that can be clung to, and then the clinging upadana. So these are two things. There are things that can be clung to, that can be grasping, that can be grasped with, and again there is a kind of activity, kind of something going on in the mind called grasping. We can feel grasping. So these are two things. Sometimes Buddha explain different kinds of forms are something that can be grasped. So basically you can see various forms, different kinds of sights, sounds, smells, tastes, and tangibles. So those are sometimes very interesting. If you know various sights are there, here and there, various different sights, beautiful sights. So we are going on picnics, trips, and even to different overseas countries to see these sights because they are beautiful, and there are various sounds, music, melodies, those are quite beautiful. Tangibles also there are quite pleasurable, and even there are various ideas which are giving more attraction towards the mind. So likewise there are different categories to which we get attached to, and therefore those things we can say are the things that can be clung to. Not only that, actually Buddha further elaborates that different feelings are there. Sometimes there are pleasurable feelings to which we typically grasp, and there are painful feelings we constantly try to get rid of. That's the other side of grasping. And then equanimous feelings, sometimes we also grasp to that. So therefore different kinds of feelings are also there. So we constantly grasp to them as different perceptions. Time to time in our mind, different perceptions are happening. I like this, I like that. This is the good thing, this is the bad thing. So likewise we constantly have various perceptions to which also we can grasp. And constantly our mind is thinking, thought formations, and to that also we can grasp. And as we constantly use our senses, they distinctly know various information, and to that also we can grasp. So likewise there are a spectrum of objects to which we can grasp, and that is separate in a way. the other hand, Buddha mentioned, in our mind, there is kind of a desire, there is kind of a greed, there is kind of a lust towards those different things. And that is what called grasping. So the beautiful things alone is not the problem. So there is a kind of a lust, there is a kind of a greed, there is a kind of an attachment, desire arising in the mind. So that is actually the problem. That is what we are talking under the grasping. Now, when Buddha is explaining these graspings, and he divided all these different graspings into 4 groups. The first one is quite obvious, Kama Upadana, the clinging to sensual pleasures. Then he says there is something called Upadana, clinging to various views. Then he says Upadana, clinging to various rules, rituals, observances. That's another. Then Upadana, the 4th category. So that is clinging to sense of I. So these are the 4 categories. So we are constantly subjected to all these different kinds of clinging. Knowingly or unknowingly, these things are going on in our mind. Let's take the first one, which is quite obvious one, Kama Upadana. So we know that in this world, we are living in the Kama world or pleasurable, rather sensual world. So this is the sense sphere that we are living with. So there are various pleasurable things are there. Pleasurable sights are there, pleasurable sounds are there, pleasurable odors are there, pleasurable tastes are there, tangibles are there, and as I said, even ideas are there. So we constantly going after them. So typically in the world, so people are driven by this pleasure principle. Constantly are driven by these pleasures. Sukha kamani bhutan. So everyone who born is going after the pleasures, going after the happiness. So how are we deriving happiness? Typically using these different sense objects, either sight, sound, smells, taste, tangibles, and mental objects. So we are being driven by that. So constantly, this is where we are trying to compete with others. Say within the family, one member may be competing with another member for what? To get more. Say as children, if we are given with something delicious, okay, another one, say brother is fighting with another brother, brother is fighting with the sister, just to get the most tasty food. Say as we are growing, probably we are going after another beautiful thing, more pleasurable things, and we want to go for a better job so that we can earn more and we can satisfy our senses, sensual gratification. So this is what we consider as something important, as our goal in our life, and that is what typically the governments are telling that we are going to provide. So next budget is with that, providing this and that. So a lot of sense pleasures. Other than sense pleasures, now if you consider any government, are they talking about mental well-being? Very rarely, but constantly promising to give more and more sense pleasures, more and more sensual happiness. Infrastructure is for deriving more happiness, more comfort to our eyes, to our ears, nose, tongue, body. So these are the typical 5 sense chords we call as Kama Guna, 5 sense chords. And we are constantly being driven by them because there is a kind of a enticing, there's a kind of a delight. When we are acquiring them, when we are using them, tasting them, experiencing them, there's a kind of a delight available. So that is also not denied by the Buddha, so that is there. asada, the delight. It's also there. That's why we are being driven by that. We are being constantly pulled towards that. By the way, Buddha give various similes for us to think about it. Think differently, not in the typical sense-driven or desire-driven pattern. So Buddha gave a different way of looking at it. Various suttas are there. I will give a simple example coming in Majjhima Nikaya. It's called Potariya Sutta. So there Buddha gave various eye-opening similes to these sensual pleasures. First one, he said, it's like meatless bones. So assume that there is a dog who's really hungry, didn't eat for many days. Suppose it's a stray dog, not in a dog at your home, well fed. But we are not talking about that dog. Suppose a dog who is in the street for many days, no food at all, and somehow he comes closer to a butcher's house. And someone, the butcher, who is a very skillful person, who takes each and every piece of meat, flesh from the skeleton, and the meatless skeleton is thrown to that dog. Now that dog is with a lot of hunger, starving, and now it's eat. Is he going to remove his hunger? It's tasty, by the way, but meatless bone. So you can see, no point. Even though the dog is licking and biting it, ultimately it is the one going to suffer by bleeding, but there is no flesh in it. So Buddha say these sense pleasures are like that. So it is like meatless bones. Very strong simile. So we are trying to gratify our senses. Ultimately there is something like when the dog receives it, think that it can satisfy using that meatless bone. It doesn't know that it is meatless. And it is trying to satisfy himself, but ultimately it is going to suffer because there is no any nutriments there. And further Buddha mentioned, it's like a bird who has something. He already got some flesh, and now he is flying in the sky, and there are many other birds following that particular bird. Why? To catch, to get. So what that bird is already having. Because we all know that there are only limited resources. We all know that everyone wants it. So the person who have it being constantly targeted, being attacked, being envious, because he has something, and which all others are also looking for. This is not only related to individuals. We can see even the society. Even among countries, if a particular country has a lot of resources, very difficult to stay alone, stay in a more peaceful manner, because many other countries are trying to compete and trying to attack, trying to invade, somehow do something and acquire those resources. So these similes are not only common to an individual, even at large scale it is quite true, helping us to look at it in a different way. And then Buddha mentioned holding like a blazing torch against the wind. In the good old days, we didn't have these today's torch flashlights. So what they did was holding a coconut leaf or something, husk, and assume that that person now it is burning, blazing, Now he has to walk against the wind. So what happened? So the flame comes towards that person, right? So either he has to hold it very far, somewhat away from his body, otherwise the flame may get caught to himself. So Buddha says, so this karma, these sense pleasures are also like that. So the person who is enjoying is in a kind of a threat, is in a kind of a danger. So it is not, he is not rid of danger. These pleasures can even harm him. So these things are not difficult to understand. Say how people are driven by various sense pleasures and ultimately they end up with a lot of tragedies. They themselves become really sick sometimes if they are going through too much sense gratification, particularly say sexual gratification. And these things are quite happening, obviously today. So a lot of say different easy way of access is available to various sites, particularly sounds also. So people are easily being driven by them and get even addicted to them. So constantly browsing, constantly going through various videos, and they also are quite attractive. Different methods are included there to further and further attract the audience, keep that person bounded to that. So in a way we are quite innocent, we are being driven by that, we are being dragged upon, we are being tempted, constantly browsing, constantly watching, many hours. Ultimately we have wasted time, we are being stressed up, frustrated, not having what we have seen, not being able to acquire what we have seen, and maybe even going to quarrel with others who already have that, and a lot of frustrations, a lot of conflicts. So the karma, the pleasures, sensual pleasures, so have the capacity, have the potential to even burn the person who is trying to enjoy that. And then Buddha mentioned, it's like a dream. So one is going through a very beautiful dream, very interesting, all the different kinds of flowers are there, parks are there. So I am with her, carrying her hands, singing a beautiful song, enjoying the sceneries. What a marvelous time. All of a sudden, my goodness, it's a dream. So Buddha mentioned, so the sense pleasures are also like a dream. We may be enjoying it, satisfying ourselves, thinking that we are satisfying, but very short-lived. But that is what we are going after. That is what we are aiming at. Say as young people, we are aiming at kind of a success in having more and more sense pleasures. When we have it, okay, we are trying to satisfy it. And another interesting point is, even the most beautiful sight, you can't enjoy for a long, long time. Suppose now you are going to an art gallery and you have found a beautiful scenery. Now you are watching it. Oh my goodness, really beautiful. So you are coming to another angle and looking at it, really beautiful. Going to another angle and watching it, really beautiful. How long can you do that? 1 hour, 2 hours, half day, 1 day, 2 days. How long? Very short time, no? I mean, you can enjoy that, you can appreciate its beauty, but not constantly. Suppose you are telling, okay, it's really beautiful, I have seen the real marvelous artwork. Then suppose someone is suggesting, okay, why don't you stay there and watch that for another day? You can't do it. Similarly, suppose you like a particular song, so you have listened to it and you recorded that, and now you are listening to it. Once you listen to it, very beautiful, quite satisfied. Say you put the repeat button, press the repeat button, so it's automatically repeating. So the second time, okay, not that bad, can enjoy it. Third time, a little bit enjoyment, but want to go to another thing. Fourth time, fifth time, sixth time, you want to get rid of that, right? You want to switch it off. The best song that you were quite enjoying little bit some time ago, it has now become kind of a burden to you that you can't even bear with. So the all sensual pleasures are quite short-lived, and if you are trying to repeatedly have it again and again at a stretch, you can't bear it. Your senses can't bear it. So the sense gratification is only limited time. If you are going to exceed that, so it becomes a kind of a pain. And further Buddha mentioned it is like various borrowed goods. Suppose someone is quite poor and he want to go to a party, a wedding. Nowadays no money to have our own jewellery, our own ornaments, attire. So that's a rich friend. So you go to him and say, I have to attend to that particular important event. That is my friend's wedding. I have to go with good attire. So please, can you lend me this and that? Yes, why not? Okay, you wear it, you put everything, and now you are going to that event, participating. And after that, you got to return it. It doesn't belong to you. So even though someone else tell you, okay, why don't you keep it? Why can't you enjoy it? Why don't you possess it forever? You can't. It's only a temporary possession. So you can't hold it for a long time. So Buddha mentioned these sense pleasures are also like that. It's also short-lived, only for a temporary time, short time. You can enjoy, you can have it, but later you have to return it. And another interesting simile he is giving, it is like a fruit tree. Suppose there is a fruit tree and someone has seen it, noticed it while he is going on the road, and he can actually climb the tree because he is quite hungry and he found it's very delicious fruits are there. Suppose it's mangoes, very delicious fruits are there, and he is quite hungry and he is capable of climbing also. Now he is climbing and trying to eat mangoes, fried mangoes. But unfortunately there is another person also coming. He can't climb the tree. So by the way, he is having a very sharp axe. He is also really hungry. He can't wait. And he didn't notice even the man is on the tree already. Now what he is going to do? Going to cut the tree, simple as that. Nowadays people don't think too much. They want something, they cut the tree, destroy it, and going to have it. That's it. So while cutting the tree, what's happening to the person who previously came? Either he has to quickly jump and climb down, or else will fall and break his arms, legs, or die. So Buddha mentioned, so these sense pleasures are like that. So always there's a competition. It is not only you who likes it. It is common to everything. Maybe beautiful sight, maybe beautiful sound, maybe beautiful odor, pleasant taste, a tangible, particularly those 5 things, sense chords. So it is not only you who likes it, everybody likes it. There's a huge competition. And if you possess it, so there are many others who are still looking forward to have, competing. So therefore there's a little danger, not even a little, there's a significant danger by possessing it. So you have to protect. Once you possess it, you need to protect. In order to protect, you need to have certain protective arms, weapons. If someone going to come and attack, trying to forcefully get, you need to now get into quarrel, protection. Now all different kinds of conflicts going to happen. Now this is the type of Upadana we constantly driven by. Now I am telling these things in very short, so you can understand. I mean, these are the things constantly going on in our mind. Now once we close our eyes, so what we have experienced in our past, if it is something gratifying, something beautiful, something pleasurable, has made a significant impact in our mind. So you remember that. I enjoyed that. Because what you are going through right now may be quite boring. Looking at the breath, looking at rising and falling, simply watching the thoughts, quite boring. But what you have experienced say a few days ago, experienced a few hours ago, experienced several years ago, may be very pleasant, beautiful, pleasurable, and those memories can come again and again to the mind and torture the mind. And similarly, you may even anticipate to have kind of gratification in the future. If not right now, if not in the past, why not in the future? So you can think of having kind of a pleasure, sensual pleasure. So fantasizing. So that is also another aspect. So we can think, even though currently I am not really physically enjoying any of these, but I can fantasize, imagine. So we are in a dream in a way. So those dreams are very attractive. Fantasies are quite attractive. Now with the development of the technology, you know, the virtual reality is there. So you can wear a particular special glass, you can enjoy the whole virtual reality. People love to be in the virtual satisfaction. You can imagine where we are heading towards. I mean, these teachings are not ancient, these teachings are not old. So Buddha's teaching, therefore, constantly telling us where we are moving forward, how our minds are working in the past, today, present, and even in the future. We as human beings are driven by all these different desires. Now, one time, one Brahmin come and ask from Venerable Kachana, why these different fighting, adherences, say, rather fighting, conflicts, and all these things are available among different groups. So on those days, you know, the Khattiyas, Vaishnavas, and those different groups are there, those their names are there. But we can think of today's names. So why these different groups are fighting each other? Maybe countries are fighting each other, nations are fighting each other, say different communities are fighting each other, families are fighting each other, family members are fighting each other. Why? So Venerable Mahakachana give a kind of a general answer. Kamaraga abhinivesa vinibandha paligeda pariuttana ajjosana hetu. So the kamaraga, the sense desire, has caused these kind of adherences in the mind, bondage in the mind, fixation in the mind. obsession in the mind and holding firmly in the mind. As a result of that, people are fighting, quarreling, conflicting, going through battles and wars. So, when we are attached to something, at the beginning it may simply give a simple sight. And now it may be a little beautiful, so you look more enthusiastically. Previously you simply saw it, but now with intention now you are looking at. Now you are exploring what you are seeing. So what happens naturally? More and more desires, more and more thinking. Previously they assumed that there are no thoughts much, but you accidentally saw something. But that is beautiful. Now you are watching purposely with some enthusiasm. From further, enthusiasm is growing. Now you are going closer even. Now exploring further. More and more desires. And now when we are continuing this process, so what Venerable Mahakachana mentioned here are the different stages that our mind go through. So there could be a abhinivesa. You go and sort of adhere to it. Now even it is not there, and once you close your eyes, you can even imagine it. You have a trace of what you have seen. It has taken a trace of what you have seen. And your mind being adhered to it. And sometimes you can't even forget it. Suppose that a beautiful girl being seen by a young man. So he accidentally saw, but now has a little interest, watching purposely, going closer, maybe take a photo, somehow. So getting more and more interested, getting adhered, now can't even forget. So wherever he see her face. So likewise, so everywhere we see, so we are adhered, the mind being adhered to it. And now have a bondage, vinibandha, kind of a mind being bound to that, attached to that. Then fixation, paliveda. Now you can't see something else, fully attracted, fully fixed with it. Say that person's mother say, no, she's not suitable to you. What do you think? Fixed. He's fixed now. Can't think of someone else. Only if I get her, I'm going to marry, I'm going to live, otherwise I'm going to suicide. Can happen, right? Things are happening right now, even today. There may be some person committing suicide because the parents have objected their affair. Constantly these things are happening. Fixations. So our minds get fixed to what we are attached. But previously we only have seen, kind of accidentally noticed something, then we were interested and we were exploring, we think more and more, and we now get attached, adhere to that, and ultimately fixed with it. Very difficult to shake, very difficult to remove, release. Pariyuttana, obsession, constantly thinking, more and more thinking, from the morning to the end, thinking about what we have seen, what we have obsessed with, what we are interested with, constantly obsessed with, and holding firmly adjosa. So Venerable Mahakachana mentioned, so this is how, when such thing has happened in one particular person's mind, do you think that has only happened in his mind? How about the others? They are also going through the same thing. So if someone else also has gone through the same kind of a thing, but the common object, now they are in fight, conflict, So likewise, when all the people in this whole world going through these kind of adherences, these kinds of bondages, these kind of fixations, obsessions, holding firmly, ultimately the world full of conflicts, full of battles, full of wars. Now, let's get into the next type of Upadana, Ditthi Upadana. Now, when we are looking at things, so we basically go through type of perversions. So we think things are generally beautiful, available for a long time, quite permanent, and I can get a lot of satisfaction, gratification, and I can control, things can be under my control. So this is the way we think, right? When you are acquiring something, when you are delighted with something, you are going after something. So if we consider the underneath tendencies in our mind, so we think, okay, I can be satisfied, I can have it, I can possess it, I can own it, I can control it as the way I like, as the way I want. That's why you want to own it for yourself, so that I can control the way I want. So with that kind of an attitude, when we are going through, so Buddha says they are called perversions in the mind. The object itself doesn't have any agreement with us that I am going to give you satisfaction to you, I am going to be permanent since you are interested, I am going to be possessed by you forever, I can be controlled by you forever. So the object under the impression doesn't have such agreement. So that particular object, that particular thing, whatever it is constantly subject to the impermanence, constantly subject to the changes, oppression by the law of impermanence, and it is being governed by various other external conditions. Those are also changing. So ultimately, the person who is going after that, going to suffer because he is thinking it is permanent, thinking that it can give lasting happiness, some satisfaction, I can control, I can own. So therefore these very underneath perversions are constantly operating in our mind, what we call as vipallasa. When we see, immediately we get the perception of these perversions. Beautiful, permanent, can be satisfied, and I can control, own as I like. So we are thinking in that manner, driven by such kind of perversions, and now we are further thinking about it. Immediately we got the simple recognitions that also is wrong, perverted. Based on that we are thinking. So ultimately those thoughts also perverted. Because based on wrong, perverted recognition, now the generated thoughts are also perverted. What we call as chitta vipassana. Ultimately, suppose now you are constantly thinking, more and more thinking, obsessive thinking. Now you come to a fixation. How about that? Is it correct? That is also wrong. That is also perverted. And what we call as ditthi vipassana. Now you have come to a strong view, fixed view, that is also completely wrong in a way, have some defects, have some deformations, not a true one. So likewise, so our very recognition process, the raw recognition process, is going through some wrong perversions, subjected to wrong perversions. Or rather we can say wrong, simply can say perversions. And based upon that we are thinking, that thinking also is perverted. Based on too much thinking, obsessive thinking, you come to a conclusion, fixed view, that view itself is perverted. Now interestingly, that person who asked the question from Vanaya, he asked another interesting question. Now, different lay groups are fighting each other, quite obvious. Nowadays, Russians are fighting with Ukrainians, okay? Obvious. Some reasons are there. So then why these ascetics are fighting with ascetics? Now ascetics have to be very peaceful people, no? That's why they are going after some asceticism, say monks, and say other religious groups. So if we consider monks, okay, they are a different group. They are not lay people. They are not much assumed that not going after that kind of sensual pleasures. They have a different objective. Similarly, say there's another religious group. So there are such people who are not that interested like the lay people. They are different. So these two groups, why they are fighting each other? And even, say, if we come to the group of monks, now suppose the same religion, are they living really cordially, looking everyone with kind eyes every day, in presence and in absence, every time with loving kindness? So that is what Buddha expected. Are all monks living like that? So then this person asking from Venerable Mahakachana, why these monks, why these ascetics? Why are they quarreling? Why are they fighting? Why there are disputes, conflicts among them? Because it is quite obvious from the previous answer. So the previous different lay groups, communities, members of the family, different villages, countries, nations, they are fighting. Why? Particularly driven by the sense pleasures. As a result of that, they are adhered to something. Now have a lot of bondages and fixations in the mind, obsessions in the mind, and again holding firmly those sense pleasure related things. Then why these ascetics? They are renunciants. They have renunciated the lay life. They have let go of all the, say, physical things. Why they are fighting? What do you think? So then when Mahakachana mentioned, Ditti Raga Abhinivesa Vinibandha Paligeda Pariyutthana Ajjosana Hetu. It is not something physical, it is something mental. So Ditti Raga. So they have desire to certain view. One group has a particular fixation to a particular view. Suppose I will take a simple example. Okay, one group says the world is flat. Another group says no, the world is round, spherical. So what happened? Is it some sense pleasure? No, right? And it's a view. So one group say, okay, there is a birth after death. Another group say, no, this is the last birth, we're going to end. No one has, experienced the death since the beginning. So different groups have different views. So when Mahakachana mentioned, so these different views are the reason why conflicts, arguments, quarrels, wars among these ascetics, renunciants, monks, different religious groups. So that means, so not only these sense pleasures, even our mental adherences, fixations to various views, thoughts, are also causing the same kind of harm. You can't say it is less harmful than the previous. Doing the same kind of harm, and they can even inspire the lay people also to fight. These things are happening even today. Certain religious group is the one leading a particular, say, government. They are the ones advising the others. That view is the one being followed. So the whole group into fight if another group think it is not the correct thing. So that is a very interesting, if I refer a particular sutta available in Sutta Nipata, Attakavanga, Paramatti Ditthisu Paribbasano Yaduttarin Kurute Jantu Loki Hinati Anye Kuto Sabbamaha Tasma Vivadani Aviti Vandu. So Buddha mentioned, so if one is holding to a particular view and he said that is the best view, is the correct view, and Hinati Anye, and he says everyone else's view, their understanding is wrong, below, mean, my one is the best. Tasma Vivadani Avita Vantu. As a result of that, this world is never going to be free from conflicts. Because whatever the thing that we think as correct, we hold as correct, we believe as correct. So strongly we start believing it, holding it, defending it. If someone is attacking it, someone is denying it, someone is challenging it, then we are into conflict, we are into war. And on the other hand, there's another interesting point. So if it is not material, if someone is telling, say you are wrong, I am correct, so why still I am going to defend my view? Now say, I hold a car, I possess a car, someone is trying to steal it. Then of course, some strong reason is that is my car, I am the one using it, I own it, I am the one having all the documents, so there are enough reasons are there. Something physical is there. But suppose now someone being challenged about a view, why he can't simply throw it away? Another interesting reason is there. Now that reason is actually the fourth reason that we'll talk later, maybe tomorrow. There's a strong I. While we are holding the view, so if someone is challenging that view, what's going to happen to the sense of self? So if I accept someone else's view, what happened to my self-view? So that being degraded, right? I being seconding to him. I want to be the first. I want to be the strongest. I want to be this very special person. I want to be the teacher. They should follow me. I don't want to be looked down. I don't want to be corrected by another person. Because I am the best. I am holding the best view. My view is the best view. So you can see this personality view is closely attached to all these things. So when someone is telling what I hold, what I believe is wrong, have some defects, this is not only that I can't, probably I can even understand my view is wrong, but I am not ready to accept it, then my self-view is degraded. So my personality view, my personality, my self-recognition, so that is being challenged. So I am not going to, even though it's quite evident that what the other person is telling, what other person is telling is true, still I am not going to accept. Because my strong personality being challenged. So ditti, therefore, even stronger and even dangerous than typical sense desires. So if you are attached to some sensual desire and you know it is short-lived, and you can sometimes understand there are repercussions, consequences, and you can even not interested about that after some time. But the view is not degrading like that, it's not subject to do that kind of impermanence if you are constantly being feeling that. So you can hold it more and more. And there are maybe many supporters also. They are telling, okay, yes, Bhante, you are the best, your view is the correct. correct one. So I am being venerated, so my view being recognized, my view being rewarded. Now there are many followers following my view. So you become a teacher now. That person become a, say, a world-renowned teacher. Probably you can remember when Venerable, actually they are lay people at that time, Venerable Sariputta and Mahamoggallana as lay people, Upadissa Kolita, they were followers of Sanjay. And one day Upadissa met Venerable Assaji. So when he met Venerable Assaji, and he wanted to know what is exactly the teaching he is following, because Venerable Assaji's behavior, his way of appearance, everything is very pleasant, calm, relaxed, tranquil. So it's very beautiful sight. So even from outer appearance, Upadissa was quite satisfied. So he is following Venerable Assaji, asking question, what is the teaching? And then Venerable Assaji, in brief, given the gist of the teaching of the Buddha. And immediately, Upadissa, he understood the teaching. And he asked where the Buddha is. And with that information, he even returned to Kolita, mentioned the same thing. He too understood. Now, as very grateful students, what they did, they went to their teacher, to Sanjay, because they understood something beautiful is there, something important is there, very valuable teaching. It's better, rather than we to go and understand, better we tell our teacher as well, as a gratitude. Then they, of course, went to him and informed that there is Buddha living in this particular place. We heard the teaching and now we are going to go there. Please join with us. What happened? He said, Sanjay is telling, okay, wise people may go to the Buddha, but majority not wise. So I can be a teacher. I don't want to be a student under the Buddha. So you people may go, but there may be enough people who can follow me. I am not going to come. So you can imagine. So, it is not something physical. Upadissa and Kolita is asking. So the view, the teaching, what Sanjay is telling, teaching, is quite superior than, inferior than what Buddha is teaching. So Buddha's teaching is more profound, and when Upadissa and Kolita trying to convince, he didn't want to. Maybe he even understood there is something, but he didn't want to give it up. So likewise, so the views are also something we strongly adhere. We can't even easily give it up. And there are enough evidences, enough examples in the canon that how Buddha tried hard to convince people who are with wrong views. Probably you have heard about 3 jatilas, the people who are called in the, I can't remember the name, typically called as 3 brothers, jatila. So Buddha, went to them and he tried his best using various psychic powers to convince, didn't accept. Ultimately, somehow he managed to convince by teaching, but very, very difficult. Even difficult than a person who is simply following the sense pleasures. These dittis, views, are so deluding, strongly holding, fixing the mind, and you can't think out of the box. You are strongly held by that. So when the mind is fixed onto a particular routine, it's constantly going on that same routine. So changing it, thinking out of that routine, very, very difficult. So that's why even certain people that Buddha understood that when they are with wrong view, Buddha even didn't go to preach. He simply gave it up. So strong is the grasping. So you can see it is not only Kama Upadana, even the Ditya Upadana, very, very strong. Our minds are addicted to grasping, holding things. As a side note, how about Samadhi? Are you going to hold Samadhi strongly so that anyone going to challenge and are going to defend Samadhi? So Buddha mentioned, if you are holding Samadhi, then it is not Samadhi. Any kind of view, if you are holding, is not proper Samadhi. So you can imagine how clever Buddha is. So he is going against the grain. So our minds are quite conditioned to grasp and even can grasp something called Samadhi, but Buddha cleverly mentioned it is not then the proper Samadhi. Particularly when he is talking about the supramundane kind of Samadhi. And let me touch the other one as well, the third type. What is called the Silapada Upadana. And people are following various rules, adherences, observances, rituals. So even today, they are following certain rituals, various observances. You can see they have certain beliefs and certain way of attachments. Do you think that all are good or all are bad? Suppose that someone is lighting candles, someone is offering flowers. Say someone is practicing even a little harder one, say living like a dog, as Kukkuravata. Strong kind of observance, very difficult. Thinking that it can provide the purification. And even today, if you go to India, many people who are fully naked, as naked ascetics, so following certain rituals. Now, in one occasion, Buddha is asking from Venerable Ananda, Ananda, what do you think? All the rituals, observances, are they going to give purification? Then Venerable Ananda say, we can't give a definite answer. It's only depending on the situation, depending on what you are observing, depending on what you are following, depending on the ritual that what you are doing. If you are following a particular ritual, if you are doing a particular observance, if it is leading to the decrement of unwholesome states of your mind, improving the wholesome states of your mind, then it's better to follow. If you are following a particular ritual, if you are adhering to a particular observance, and as a result of that, if the wholesomeness of your mind is reducing, unwholesome states are increasing, better give it up. So whenever Anand say, so therefore you can't simply give a definite answer, it depends on how this wholesomeness and unwholesomeness as a result of your observance is going to happen. So that is the determining factor. So therefore, we can't say that all the rites and rituals are all bad. But when we are following a particular rites and ritual, we need to see, is the wholesomeness of my mind is improving, increasing? Am I getting more virtuous? Is it causing me to have a more clear mind? Or is the ritual going to improve my wisdom? Particularly the wholesome part of my mind is improving, then no harm. Probably we can follow further. But suppose you are following a particular ritual because it came from generations, your grandparents did it, your parents did it, your teachers did it, and they are the ones admonished, and you are also blindly following. And if you honestly look back and see, so when I am doing it, when I am following it, if wholesomeness of my mind is degrading, reducing, and unwholesome side of my mind is improving, increasing, then better leave it up. So simple blind following of rites and rituals is not recommended. And even the seed, see, if we are following it, so we need to see, so when we are going through these observances, so is it making my mind happy, making my mind wholesome, or making the mind unwholesome? And on the other hand, so this grasping happens because we don't know how to follow without grasping. Now say a particular person, he is interested of being a monk, and after becoming a monk, so he is given say 10 precepts, Samanera Dasasila, and he want to be an honest monk, he want to protect the Sila strongly, and he is so strict, can be, because he don't want to do any slightest mistake, and he is strongly holding it. So it's a kind of grasping, making little burden to the mind. And assume that he is becoming an Upasampada monk, high ordination, more and more rules, more and more things to follow. And even if he try to follow that strongly, more burden can happen to the mind. He was very strict, and he want to follow it, do it properly, not making any slightest mistake. And it can lead to kind of a pressure in his mind. If a mistake happens, kind of a frustration in his mind, a lot of worries, doubts whether he is doing it properly. So if we don't know even the proper sila, how to properly do it, how to properly follow it, how to properly adhere to it, without making it a burden, then that itself can generate kind of a frustration. So how we know the limit? Are we strongly holding or are we loosely holding? Suppose another monk who don't care about the rules, don't care about ascetic code or monastic code, simply follow his own instincts, own desires. So do you think that is the best way? So how to find the moderation? So the proper sila, on the other hand, if we are following properly, Buddha mentioned, it gives satisfaction, it gives happiness, abhyapancha sukha, anavajja sukha. So if we are following proper indriya samvara, restrainment of the faculties, so there is no harm coming from no influence coming from the sense objects, As a result of that, the wholesomeness of the mind being protected, constantly being available for long time. So therefore, Buddha mentions the abhyapajja sukha. Similarly, if you are following rules, precepts properly, and you are not harming yourself, you are not harming another person, and once you look back, think about yourself, you feel happy because you are a good person. Because of your behavior, you haven't harmed yourself, haven't harmed another person. As a result of that, you can enjoy that happiness, what is called as anavajja sukha. So on the other hand, in order to get this moderation, so certain kind of practice is essential. So mere following, I don't think that without meditation, without mindfulness, without proper cultivation of satipatthana, mindfulness, that one can do it. Because at the early stages of the monkhood, when we are honestly trying to follow the precepts, so it's very likely that we get into kind of strong holding. Therefore could be various doubts, regrets. But on the other hand, if we are not following it, if we are neglecting it, again that is not the proper thing. So in that sense we can say, it is said, better strongly hold at the beginning, but continue the practice. So the practice will tell you what is the moderation, where is the moderation, how to follow. So the mind may recognize when it is strongly holding, when it is grasping, and mind may recognize when it is loosely holding or not grasping or neglecting. So it's a kind of a property that we need to develop within the mind. So and in Dhammapada, Buddha mentioned an interesting verse. Na sīlabbata mattena bahu saccena vāpana athava samadhi labena vivicca sayanena vā pusami nekkhamma sukham apudujjana sevita bhikkhu vissāsa māpādi appatto āsavakkayam. Very strong kind of indication. So Buddha mentioned na sīlabbata mattena. So if assume that now this is telling to the monks, say they are following certain precepts, say Vipassana monk, lot of precepts are there. Suppose now he is following it, he says Sīlavanta monk. And Buddha say, na sīlabbata mattena, not through mere following of the precepts. Na bahusaccena vāpana, not by too much learning. I mean, not too much, I mean enough learning. People can learn the Tripitaka, can become quite educated in the canon. And Buddha said, even not from that, not only through that. Athava samadhi labena. Suppose a person with jhana, first jhana, second jhana, third jhana, fourth jhana, arupa jhana, even not through that. Vivicca sayanena vā, and you are completely living a secluded life. You are living alone. Pusami nekkhamma sukham apudujjana sevita. I am experiencing kind of a nekkhamma sukha, renunciative happiness, which is not common with the typical lay people, typical worldlings. So you can imagine, so Buddha is talking something very sublime. So one thing is the sila, second one is the bahusacca, the education. From that education, what's the proper term? Learnedness. And the samadhi, higher concentrations, then being secluded. And with that, you are enjoying the renunciative happiness. And Buddha mentioned, Bhikkhu Vissasa Mahadi, monk, you should not come to a conclusion. You should not satisfy yourself. Don't think that you have done. Don't think that you are complete, fulfilled. Appatto asavakkaya. Till you be free from all the fetters. So that means, if one have any kind of a fetter, kamasava, bhavasava, avijjasava, any of these fetters are available in one's mind, Buddha mentioned you should not say that you are fulfilled, I am done. You can't say like that. So even there, so Buddha mentioned, even though you have something admirable about your sila, something admirable about your samadhi, and about learnedness, and you being alone, you are not associating others, you are maintaining your seclusion, and you are, as a result of that, you are enjoying that nekkhamma sukha, renunciative happiness. Still you can't say you are done, you are a fulfilled person. So you can imagine how Buddha is pointing out the goal in a way. It's not the typical or petty kind of things that Buddha has admired. He has always pointed out the supreme kind of a goal. Not trying to hold people, followers at mere petty kind of results. So, Silabbada Upadana particularly can happen to a person who is trying to be virtuous in a way. Because the others are not much concerned about these kind of things. So this person is a more spiritual person. See, the typical worldlings or typical people who are more into pleasure principle, they are not much interested about these rituals, right? Observances, they are not much interested. Now here, this category is more into the spiritual people, like we all of us. So we have kind of a spiritual inclination. So that is why we are all here. And there is a kind of a warning here. So how our mind can get attached to rites and rituals, observances? Are we blindly following them? And have we done any kind of a verification whether these rites, rituals, observances has made my mind more wholesome? Have we done that kind of an evaluation? Or are we simply following because our teachers have said, our parents have said, our tradition have said? So these are very beautiful in a way with how he is pointing out kind of a free thinking. Not simple blind following, he proclaimed, rather kind of wise reflection. So it is necessary to follow certain wholesome rites, rituals, so that our wholesomeness improving, unwholesome side decreasing. If that is happening, then better follow. And later only we may find out even there how to maintain kind of a balance. So that balancing only happens when one becomes a Sotapanna, stream winner. Till that we don't know the right amount, even in the wholesome side. As a result of that, even though we are following certain wholesome rules, it can make a little bit of frustration. It can have kind of a grasping. It can have kind of an attachment. Even the proper ones you can need to understand. I need to emphasize that. Not the wrong ones, like Ajavata, Grovata, those are, of course, we all can understand wrong ones. But even the correct ones, till one becomes a Sotapanna, we can have grasping. So we are coming to very subtle levels. Previously it is very gross. We are attached to sight, we are attached to sound. So those are gross, physical, we can say. Then views, those are not physical but strong, subtle, completely mental. Now here, even more subtle, certain things are there, completely wrong, and if we are following it and then lessening of wholesomeness and increasing of unwholesomeness, then we need to give it up. And even if we are following the wholesome ones, then we have to follow it with moderation. The proper moderation only we may experience when one becomes a Sotapana. So with that, I like to conclude today's Dhamma sermon, hoping to discuss the last type and the method how to overcome all these different graspings tomorrow using the same sutta. And thank you very much for attentive listening. So today, Anumodhanava, the lunch dana by Lakshmi Tisoisa. Purpose is to transfer merits to her father, Buddhi Tisoisa, who would have been 100 years old 3 weeks ago, and to her mother, Hedi Tisoisa, and to share merits with all our Dhamma teachers and at Mitrikala and at Kalalgoda, and all our Kalyana Mittas, all seen and unseen beings who help to protect and preserve the Buddha, Dhamma and the Sangha, Sasana. May all beings be healthy, well and happy. And then from Kalalgoda team, blessings for a healthy life to Lakshmi Tisoisa, who is celebrating her birthday in 3 weeks' time. Okay, so both have the 3 weeks' time. You can underline that. So today also, so we have gathered here, spent some time in practicing meditation and participating into Dhamma discussion and listening to Dhamma. And all these help us to accumulate some merits. We share these merits with all the past readers. We share these merits with all the celestial beings, and we share these merits with all the beings whoever in need of merits. And we wish these merits help us also to attain Path Purusha Nibbana. While keeping these good wishes in our mind, let's recite the traditional verses. Ettavataca amhehi sambatam punya sampradam sabbe deva anumodantu sabba sampatti siddhya. Ettavataca amhehi sambatam punya sampradam sabbe bhuta anumodantu sabba sampatti siddhya. Ettavataca amhehi sambatam punya sampradam sabbe satta anumodantu sabba sampatti siddhya. Akasattha ca bummattha deva naga mahindika punyantang anumoditva cirang rakhantu sasanam. Akasattha ca bummattha deva naga mahindika punyantang anumoditva cirang rakhantu desanam. Akasattha ca bummattha deva naga mahindika punyantang anumoditva cirang rakhantu mamparang. Idang vo nyatinang hotu sukita huntu nyatayo. Idang vo nyatinang hotu sukita huntu nyatayo. Idang vo nyatinang hotu sukita huntu nyatayo. Imina punya kammena mame bala samadhumo Satan samadhumo hotu yava nibbana pattiya. Imina punya kammena mame bala samadhumo Satan samadhumo hotu yava nibbana pattiya. Imina punya kammena mame bala samadhumo Satan samadhumo hotu yava nibbana pattiya. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.